Hi, good evening. I just wanted to make a quick video about collocations and expressions when appearing before the court, either in a civil or a criminal case in the UK. So yeah, I mean basically in the UK we have the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. And these courts, when they make a decision, when they pass a judgment in a case, these decisions or these judgments are very often binding, more often than not, are binding on lower courts. In the case of the Supreme Court, the decision will be binding on the Court of Appeal. And in the case of the Court of Appeal, the decision will be binding on the High Court, etc. Moving on to case law, in the UK, we have a big tradition with in terms of the importance of case law with respect to laws passed by Parliament. Case law is also known as the common law, and basically once the Supreme Court, for example, has made a decision, as opposed to what happens in Spain, this decision will be respected by the lower courts. So, for example, in Spain, the Supreme Court recently, 6 or 7 years ago, made a decision that if your earnings, as a self-employed person, if your earnings were less than the minimum wage, then you wouldn't have to pay social security, like the social security, the monthly contribution of €300. This was a decision made by the Supreme Court. But in fact, as a freelance person or as a self-employed person, if you don't pay your social security contributions, the Social Security Department, they won't follow the Supreme Court's decision in Spain. The Supreme Court's decision in Spain has to be enacted by Parliament, whereas in the UK, if this were to happen in the UK, the courts would follow the Supreme Court's decision. Okay, another good expression is to hand down a judgment. So, for example, let me give you an example of to hand down. The judge will hand down the judgment at 4 p.m., 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And very often, for example, in the Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand in London, just on the other side of Waterloo Bridge, basically in the centre of legal London, you'll have a whole panoply of lawyers waiting for a big decision at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, another good expression is heard. So, for example, we say the case will be heard. For example, in criminal law, if you're a defendant in a criminal case, then first of all your case will be heard in front of the magistrates. Basically, these are just normal people who basically are responsible for passing down judgments in the lower courts in very simple criminal matters. And if the case is of greater importance, then the magistrates will send the case on to be heard by the Crown Court. For example, in a murder or a domestic violence case.